We are starting chapter 14, and 14 talks about polynomials, which will lead you into Algebra 1 for next year. So lesson 14.1 is just titled Polynomials, and it's kind of an introduction to a bunch of different things. First of all, the naming of them. So we have already looked at the term monomial this year. Monomial is a number, a variable, or a product of them. So if you look at our monomials, we'll go through just a plain number 5 is a monomial. Okay, it's called a constant monomial. A variable like x squared or x is a monomial. A product, 4ab, that's 4 times a times b. So it's a number and two variables. That's called a monomial. And then this one is x over 8, because that actually is equivalent to 1/8 times x, which would be a number times a variable. So that works. All of those things are monomials. Here's the things from way back that would eliminate something from being a monomial. First of all, if you have a variable in a square root sign, that is not allowed. Anytime you see any variable in a square root sign, you can know that it's not a monomial. Therefore, it's not a polynomial. Also, you cannot have a variable in a denominator. That eliminates it from being a monomial. Those are the two big things. If you see either one of those, you would think it's not a monomial, so in other words, it's not a polynomial either. Okay? Now, monomial, mono means one. So it is one term sitting there by itself. Once you add a term or subtract a term, it becomes a binomial. Binomial means two. It's two monomials added or subtracted together. So see, 4x plus 3. Individually, those are monomials, but since you add them, there's two attached together, they're called binomials. X squared plus y squared, there's two different things. There's a plus sign adding two different terms, binomial. Even something that looks really complicated like this one, 7a squared b cubed minus 4a. That is a binomial because it's a monomial minus a monomial. So binomial means two terms, two monomials added or subtracted together. Then there is a trinomial. Tri means three, just like a tricycle or a triangle. So 3 monomials added or subtracted. So if you have a squared plus b squared plus c squared. More typically, you might have something like the second one, x squared minus 2x plus 5. That's called a quadratic expression because it has a square in it. It's quadratic. Or something weird looking like this one, 4rs minus 3x plus 8. There's 3 different terms added and subtracted. There's 1, 2, 3. So you will have to be able to identify if a polynomial is a monomial, binomial, or trinomial. And if it's more than 3, then you would just say it's a polynomial. We really probably won't have too many of those. So they are all polynomials, but you can name more specifically monomial, binomial, trinomial. Are there any questions about that?
No, ma'am.
Now we're going to move on to talking about the degree of a monomial. So it's going to be important that you know the difference between this first thing, degree of a monomial. Okay, that's important. Degree of a monomial. Make sure you realize this is one term. You sum the exponents on the variables. You add up all the exponents on the variables. So if we look at the first example right here, 4a squared b cubed. The sum of the exponents on the variables. How many variables are in 4a squared b cubed? How many different variables are there? 4a squared b cubed. How many different variables are there? Two. There's an a and a b, right? What's the exponent on the a? 2. What's the exponent on the b?
3.
So the degree of that term is 5. X, y to the 4th. How many different variables are in x, y to the 4th? How many different letters do you see?
2.
2. An x and a y. What's the exponent on the x? 1. What's the exponent on the y? 4. So the degree of that one is also 5. Okay, 10m. 10m. On 10m, how many different letters do you see? 1. What's the exponent on that 1? It's m. What's the exponent on m? 1. So the degree of that term is just 1. Okay, my last monomial is 7. How many different variables do you see with that? 0. So guess what the degree of that is?
0.
It is 0. When there's no variable, it's just a constant, the degree is 0. Are there questions about degrees of monomials? That's if there's just one term. Okay, here's where it gets kind of funny because I'm changing to degree of the polynomial. And once you learn degree of a monomial, usually you think, oh, I got to add them up all the way across. No. No, no, no. Degree of a polynomial, it's the highest degree of one of its monomials. So what that means is you're going to find the degree of each term and pick the highest one. So we are going to look at the degree of each term of each monomial and then pick the highest one. So let's look at our first example. The first example is 4a squared b cubed plus 7xy minus 8c squared d. So, first term, 4a squared b cubed. What is the degree of that term? Oren? 5. So I'm going to write it right below it. 7xy. What is the degree of that term? 2. 8c squared d. What is the degree of that term? 3. So the degree of that polynomial, oops, I meant to write the word degree, hold on. The degree of that polynomial is the highest one of those, which is 5. 5. All right, next. X squared plus 3x minus 8. What's the degree of x squared? Anybody? 2. What's the degree of 3x? 1. What's the degree of 8? 0. So our degree of that polynomial will be 2. You pick the highest one. Please do not add all the way across, okay? Sometimes kids get confused after they do the monomial and they add up everything that's an exponent. They forget and think they have to add all the way across the polynomial. Don't get that confused. It's a big difference. Okay, last one. W squared z squared minus 7wz cubed plus 10wz. There's no tissues. So, first term, w squared z squared. What's the degree? 4. 7wz cubed. What's the degree? 4. 10wz. What's the degree? 2. So the degree of the polynomial is the highest one, which is 4. Questions?
Is that easy?
I promise. So on my big campus, all there is this time is 14.1. I think it's either called worksheet or practice. I don't remember which one. It's just there's just one, 14.1, and you are to do all of the evens. You are to do the evens, and that will be due